Good evening, everybody. We'll call to order this meeting, regular meeting of the Saugerties School Board of January 14th. Designation of emergency exits. We have two this way, and there's one back over here. I heard there's one over there, but was told not to send people that way. So we have two here and one over here. Virginia, would you do roll call for us?
William Paul.
Here.
Christine Bellarosa. Here. Katie Emerson Hall. Here. Tina Irizarry. Here. Carol Felder. Here. Michael Meyer.
Here.
Jeffrey Ozzie.
Here.
Timothy Wells. Meredith Mills.
All right. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, Dr. Ursig, our mission and business statements, please.
We in Saugerties Central School District provide equitable, engaging, inspiring, and holistic experiences that support success and empowerment for students, families, and the community in a diverse and changing world. It's our vision to become a beacon of educational excellence where every individual is inspired to be able to achieve their fullest potential.
All right, thank you. We have, first item up is approval of minutes from our December 10th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept? Carol, second. By Ms. Bellarosa. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. All right. Ms. Mills, our student report, please. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, thank you. Regents Week is coming up next week. Please refer to the Regents letter that Ms. Molyneux shared recently or the Week at Glance for more specific information. Feel free to call our offices with any questions. Savannah Tittleback took third in the Eastern States Tournament this past weekend for female wrestling. By February, Science Olympiads will have competed in 2 invitationals and regionals. We are looking forward to hearing if they will qualify for states. Best of luck to everybody involved. Eagle Club has been working with our custodial staff and director of facilities to improve recycling efforts in the secondary campus. We would like to thank everyone for their effort in seeing this through. Anyone interested in the building leadership team, anyone interested in serving as a member in the senior high building leadership team, please reach out to Ms. Molyneux. And the second semester begins January 27th. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Next up is our Riccardi Elementary School update. Led by Principal China.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Tryon, the principal of Riccardi Elementary. Thank you for this opportunity. We are very, very excited to have our student government officers here tonight. We're very eager to share with you all about Riccardi happenings, and so they're going to kick it off tonight. So, first of all, a big thank you to Mrs. Pettit, our third grade teacher here at Riccardi, and also the advisor to our student government. Mrs. Pettit does a phenomenal job empowering our students to see initiatives through and truly enact the change that we want to see at Riccardi. So each officer you're going to hear from tonight was elected democratically. They gave speeches to the student body right here in this room. On the left, let me see if I can operate this. On the left, we have Ms. Goddess Grinnell. Right after she won, or right after she was elected, look at that smile. And on the right, we have Madeline Pettit. She was passionately sharing her campaign promises with our student body. So this evening, our Riccardi student leaders are going to start by sharing a moment that has challenged them and how they navigated that challenge, as well as a moment that they're proud of. And so without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Ms. Addison Taylor.
I'm Addison Taylor, and I'm the Student Government President. We have learned from our teachers that it is very important to have a growth mindset. We will try to model that now by sharing some things that we are proud of about our own group, and one challenge we had to work to overcome. I am proud that I can help my school community by being a part of student government, even though I had to overcome finding some spirit ideas that would appeal to students. I didn't give up and found ideas that appealed to most. I'm Madeline Pettit, and I'm the Student Government Treasurer. One memorable thing I always enjoy is field day. Even though we do it every year, they are one of the most fun things we do at school, and I look forward to them every year. Field day also helps us work together as a team and build friendship. One challenge I used to face was struggling with math, but I got better over time by practicing more often, and Mrs. Maggs, my 5th grade teacher last year, helped me during the summer, which helped me improve.
I'm Matthew Ursig, and I'm the Student Government Co-Social Director. I am proud to have worked with the student government last year to get volleyball nets and soccer nets at recess. This was something that the students asked for. One obstacle that I've faced is not being good at speaking in front of a large group of people. I practiced my student government speech in front of my family countless times and took their feedback. I was proud after I delivered my speech.
I am Emma Kramer, and I am the Student Government Co-Social Director. I'm proud of getting straight A's on most of my report cards. A challenge I faced in school was when I had to write my essay and my speech for student government, so my parents helped me. It was a challenge because I had to write a 500-word essay and a 1-minute speech. My name is Alice Fitzgerald, and I am the Student Government Secretary. I was proud of getting voted into student government by the school. I faced a lot of social challenges with my friends and the students in Saugerties. I overcame them by making some good friends here. I'm Dennis Canal, and I'm the Student Government Vice President. One thing I'm proud of is getting 300 for my Friday quiz. That was very exciting because it was my grade up. One challenge I faced was when I changed schools from Mount Marion to Riccardi. The things that made me feel welcome were all the kids being super nice to me and the teachers being welcoming and making me understand all the work.
All right, one more round of applause for student government officers. Good job, everybody. So they're going to stick around and help me with the student experience portion of this presentation. But before we get there, I just want to share a couple very brief data slides with you. So this is data that I realize you've seen before at the other schools, and so we'll keep it tight, we'll keep it brief. You're looking at the 2023-2024 iReady reading data. And the two things I'd like to highlight from this slide is at the beginning of the year, 21% of our students were considered at risk. And that decreased to 10% by the end of the year. So we had an improvement of 11 percentage points over the course of the year. That's for reading. And 33% of our students, if you look all the way on the left, were considered high performing, right, or at or above grade level. And that increased to 63% by the end of the year, an improvement of 30 percentage points. So we had similar data in math. So same slicing of the data. Most at-risk students went from 19% of the student body at the beginning of the year down to 4% at the end of the year. So that's an improvement of 15 percentage points. And our highest performing kids went from 21% at the beginning of the year to 64% at the end of the year, an improvement of 43 percentage points. Right, so that's one way to slice the data. We expect students to grow right over the course of the school year, so the other thing we look at is from September to September. Right, so September 23 to September 24, are we improving or not, right? And so generally what we're seeing is that students are, we're seeing similar levels of proficiency from year to year. And we saw the same thing when we compared last year when we compared 22 to 23. And so we can expect similar growth that we've seen in the past this year. One quick piece of data that I want to highlight that is encouraging to me is the percentage of at-risk students in September decreased by 4 percentage points, so from 19% down to 15%, which shows that our most struggling kids, right, our most at-risk kids, are making more than 1 year's worth of growth in one academic school year. Right, so they're making more than 1 year's worth of growth in one academic school year, which shows that we're catching some of those students up, right? It's not all, it's a small number, but we're making momentum. There is a lot of work to be done, some of which we'll talk about tonight, but that is encouraging to me, right? So that even our most struggling kids who are multiple years below grade level are making progress. So congratulations to our teachers who are really driving that work. So on to our first priority area in our blueprint for excellence is academic excellence. So you've all seen the engagement continuum. It's really exciting work. If you walk into any classroom, you see the continuum on the walls. Students are using the language. And I want to share one anecdote about the engagement continuum. I was working out in a local gym here in Glasgow a couple weeks ago, and we had some high school students working out nearby. And the funniest thing happened. I was not expecting to hear anything about school, certainly not about the engagement continuum. But two teenage boys talking to each other, away from adults, right, away from parents, away from anyone that they might try to be, impressing. One teenage boy said to the other, "Well, man, I was disruptive for a while, but now I'm back to participating." Crazy, right? So if teenage students are using this language that we're teaching them in school at the gym, away from school, that's a win, right? It's a very big win for Saugerties. So congratulations to the high school teachers, whoever they are, of those students. And of course, we're seeing that at the elementary level too. So the picture up there on the right is one of our fourth grade students who set her goal. Her goal for that particular lesson when I was in that room was to be investing. And she put the star underneath her goal. And then beyond that, she actually wrote down her specific goal. She knows that when she gets bored, she goes into her desk and avoids, and doesn't participate. So her goal was, I want to not go in my desk if I get bored. Okay? So that's the first step, identifying our bad habits. The next step there would be for her to identify a replacement behavior, right? What am I going to do instead of going into my desk to make sure I don't get bored, right? Whether it's getting up, stretching her legs, taking notes, etc. So that's going really well this year. It's a huge priority area when it comes to academic excellence. Next up, I'd like to highlight 3 areas, priority areas that I have here at Riccardi. So this is not necessarily district initiatives. These are things that I've noticed walking around that I think that if we can hit these hard, we can really drive, move the needle. So first is playing volleyball instead of ping pong, right? So as a teacher, ping pong, right, you ask a question and the student responds to you, right? And then you evaluate the correctness of the student's response. And certainly sometimes we want to do that. It is absolutely necessary to do that. But generally we want students to be more engaged, right? We want students to be thinking and listening about what all the other kids are saying in the room when you ask that question. So you want to play volleyball, right? So you, as a teacher, you serve the ball, you ask the question, the students respond, and then you have another student evaluate, that student's response, or add on, or rephrase, or revise, whatever it is, and then you go to another student before you bring it back to you as a teacher. And so many teachers here are on it. We're moving in that direction. But the more that we can do that, we'll see engagement levels go through the roof. And we'll see students really be able to use the language that we want them to use around evaluating one another in a constructive way. Second is instruction that is laser focused on the objective, right? So it's very easy to tell life lessons and go on tangents, but we really want to stick to whatever the objective is in that lesson, have it posted on the board, and we're not deviating from that. The third is that assessments are actionable and connected concretely to that objective. We need to know if we're effective as a teacher, as the adult in the room. We need to know if we're doing a good job or not, and anywhere in between, and using that data to inform our instructional next steps. Two pictures I'd like to share with you. On the left, we have a kindergarten classroom, Mrs. Porter's classroom, and the student is running the morning activity. So he's looking at the letter M, and his job is to tell the class what sound M makes. And he forgot what sound M makes. And he's also a kid that gets nervous a little easily. And so Mrs. Porter did the brilliant move of bringing up a friend who told him what the sound M makes, and she was up there for the entire morning exercise. And so, it's great. We have something similar on the right. Actually, Ms. Goddess Brunel is leading the charge in 5th grade. Also, phonics based, right? Foundations. And so I put these side by side. I didn't even realize this as I was taking the pictures, but right, we have kindergarten and we have 5th grade, and we have students leading the activity. Right, so this all comes back to shifting the majority of thinking that kids are doing from adults to students, right? So you don't want to have a mental workout as the adult, you want the students to be having that mental workout. So great job, guys, that was very impressive. So, on to our next priority area, the student experience. I'm going to bring up our students again to kick it off. You guys ready? All right, so our student government really has done a wonderful job soliciting feedback from students to inform their initiatives. So our students here, our officers, are going to talk about all of the ways that they are improving the student experience at Riccardi. So please give a warm welcome to Addison Taylor.
The Riccardi student government officers have been busy improving the student experience. Here's a breakdown of our initiatives and the positive impacts they can have for all of our students. Last school year, the student government worked hard to create a smaller version of the high school score store. Our store opened up in September and has provided students with needed school supplies donated by our community. It has a positive impact on our students because they are now able to get the items they need for school at no cost. It has also taught the officers responsibility since we are in charge of running the store.
We have also been in charge of organizing Spirit Days, which help foster community and pride. Through the themed dress-up days or events, Spirit Days have a positive impact by promoting fun, engagement, and unity within the school.
This past holiday season, we voted on having lobby decorations to represent all holidays. By doing this, we created a welcoming and inclusive school by recognizing diverse holidays and cultures. It was impactful because it helped students feel valued and represented, supporting a scene of belonging. We hope to send out a survey to our Riccardi community soon to gather input from families to ensure a comprehensive and inclusive representation of holidays. We think it will have a positive impact on families and encourage family involvement, promote diversity, and strengthen school-family connections. These initiatives demonstrate creativity, inclusivity, and leadership. They are all things that make Riccardi special.
Wonderful job, everyone. Thank you so much. Parents, if you want to leave, you may. Great job, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. So, in the spirit of inclusivity, we want students to have a window and a mirror experience, right? We want kids to always see themselves in the mirror in our curriculum, right, in their daily experience, and we want them to also be able to see other perspectives and other lives that they, points of view that they may not, have experience with. And so, if our vision truly is to, for our students to become global citizens, we need to continue to look at everything through that lens, right? Everything we do has to be through that lens. And so with that, I was really excited to see what's pictured there. It's simple, right? It's 3 clues. This is a 6th grade classroom, Mrs. Durazio's classroom. And students, while independently working, were encouraged, instead of raising their hand, waiting for the teacher to come over and answer the question, they were encouraged to go up, right, uncover one of those clues, and then come back with that clue to independently solve the problem, right? So it empowers students instead of relying on someone else, right, to solve it themselves using those clues. And so, again, ideally, we are fostering independence. Up next, we've got professional culture. So Jim Collins talks about a big, hairy, audacious goal. And when I think about what that means, I think about our blueprint for excellence, and I think about our portrait of a graduate. Right? How are we actually going to achieve those things? Are we actually going to develop the skills, the soft skills and hard skills in our students once they graduate? To do that, we need to continually and intentionally cultivate a culture of professional excellence, right? And so last year at Riccardi, something that we were very focused on in this room with all of our teachers was Carol Dweck's work, right? Developing a growth mindset, what that actually means for adults. Because it takes a lot of humility to look at a set of data and even talk about it. You have to set your ego aside because it's truly not representative of who you are as a person. But instead, we have to take that data and we have to act on it. And it's very difficult to do, if you're not used to doing that. And so we spent a lot of time just talking about growth mindset through the lens of students, of course, but also through adults. So what does our data tell us? Our data tells us that vocabulary and comprehension need continued focus. And this is nothing, that's isolated to Riccardi, right? This is something it's a national crisis that we're focused on. And so one of the things I'm very excited about is Dr. Jen's work, one of our instructional coaches. This year I have seen an increase in the number of teachers voluntarily opting into working with her, working with coaches, period, outside of their assigned times. And that shows me that, people are generally, open to this, obviously everyone's open to growth, right? But the idea of working next to somebody who might have some, different perspective, it's really great to see people taking advantage of her. So we are gaining momentum, not because of a district mandate, right, but because I think teachers are seeing the impact on learning, and they're actually willing to try these initiatives, which is wonderful to see. I'll talk briefly about the BLT. So, you know what a BLT is, right? Building Leadership Team meets once a month, made up of key stakeholders. A couple highlights from last year at Riccardi. We saw chronic absenteeism decrease from 20% to 18%. It's only 2 percentage points, but we're moving in the right direction. Academics, we saw grades 1, 2, 3, and 5 all saw year-over-year increases in ELA. And we saw grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 see year-over-year increases in math. Proficiency in geometry, which has been a focus area. increased across the grades at Riccardi by 3 percentage points, also small, but gaining momentum. And I'm very proud of our 4th grade team and their students as they saw a 24 percentage point increase on the New York State math assessment. This year, I won't read you the goals, you have them, but we have a goal in attendance, in academics, and in student culture. As we all know, we just visited the classrooms, right, where we have the first heating pipe and the flood. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who helped with that. So thank you, Dr. Ursay and your family. His family came in and helped the teachers post-flood. Dr. Rohrbach, Jen Fellows for inventory our curriculum. Rich Prinz and his team, purchased here. Thank you. Especially Jeremy, who, as we know, identified that there was something wrong with the temperature spike immediately, I think on December 22nd, so that people could take action on the 23rd. And my team here, the custodial team, Ruben, Keith, and Philippe, just spent a lot of time here when they weren't planning on it over the break. Pictured here, every single staff member here at Riccardi stayed after school to help teachers rebuild their classroom. They stayed beyond the faculty meeting time to put it all back together. You all just walked into the rooms, right? It's hard to tell that a flood occurred in there, and those rooms were absolutely stripped and bare just a few weeks ago. So I'm very, very proud of the team here, truly demonstrating a whatever it takes attitude. So on to our last priority area, family and community engagement. I'd like to thank the Riccardi PTA, who has been incredibly supportive and involved, particularly this year in funding one field trip a year for each grade level. I'd also like to highlight our community service club. Their name is Riccardi Lions Roar for their community. They're pictured here. Their advisors, Daphne Celli. Daphne has spent countless hours with this team of students, going to the Ivy Lodge, Albany's Children's Hospital over the break, Saugerties Food Pantry, and the Animal Shelter. They truly have gone above and beyond to give back to the community. And finally, some next steps and priority areas for family and community engagement here at Riccardi. Actually, this is across the district. We're doing a career fair, as I'm sure you've heard about, to expose students to various career options. We'd like to develop parent workshops. So, to invite parents in on a variety of topics. We're going to survey them to see what they'd like to see. But ideas are, how do I help my 3rd grader with new, math standards? A new approach to math that maybe I didn't have when I was in school. How do I manage tantrums in the grocery store for my 5-year-olds, when they want that piece of chocolate or whatever it is. All right, so I'd like to thank our student government officers for being such good leaders. And that concludes our presentation this evening. Thank you for your time, your continued support. Are there any questions I can answer this time?
Anybody have any specific? I have a lot of questions, far too many for probably the minute we have here to go through. If anybody has any specific questions, you should try.
I just have 2 comments. One, I think one of the nice things about more teachers opting into coaching is that it's also a sign of trust that system is going to work and serve them, and I think that's a great sign. I've done a lot of work with that idea of windows and mirrors, and we've also now added sliding doors. So that idea that what I'm looking at through that window or what I see reflected is that I can actually make that leap and go and explore that culture or explore a new perspective. So I just add sliding doors.
Anybody else? No. So I just have one comment on the flood that had. I know everybody has, and well deserved, have thanked thankful to the teachers and Mr. Prince's team and Jeremy and Dr. Ursay for helping. But I always go back to, I think people handle that based on the leadership that they follow. So since you're the building leader, thank you for you know, over the holiday, getting us through that. And you're right, you walk into those two rooms and you would not know. So thank you for leading them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you getting up with this or not? Okay, no. Yes. All right, next up is our long-range financial analysis, the process. We have Dr. Rick Timms presenting to us. And he has some handouts.
Yeah, I've got some handouts for you. We're in the middle of the process of your long-range plan. We've got a lot of work done, but a lot of work to do because there's a lot to finance. I think everybody thinks they're an expert on finance, but it's very complicated. See, are we going to get the slides up on that big board too, or no? There they are. Look at that. Perfect. Okay. All I ask you to do is if you just stay on the same page I'm on, because we've got a lot here. Let's go over. Can I just take this and walk over? I think I can handle the microphone. I played the rock band for 20 years, so I think I have. Okay, here we go. So thank you first for inviting me. Many districts in New York State are about on the precipice to start struggling mightily. And that's because the state aid that we were used to getting over the last few years will not be as robust as it has been into the future. And I think a major part of your revenue picture will be state aid. So what I'm going to do is take you through some slides and tell you what we're going to be looking at in your district. All right, you good? Thank you. So the first thing we're going to look at is submissions from SED or ST3s. Now these are the official forms of the school district. They're submitted to the state education department. So this tells where the money came from and where it went to. Because budgets are really money in, money out, and you have many sources of revenue and extremely large number of sources of expenses. So we're going to check that out. We're going to look back 5 years because we want to compare your district pre-COVID to post-COVID, because there were huge federal grants in the meantime. Second thing, we're going to look at the financial calculations on the SED website. Now your district has access to these, I do not, and we're not supposed to, only the district does. And what happens is as kids are, we'll say, registered with the state education department, things like this, for students with special needs, it triggers certain aid categories. So we're working with the school district to keep up on that. We've taken a look already at your auditor reports, so we look at those all the time. Now the auditor reports have certain value. We make sure nobody ran away with the money, and we make sure that everything's in the right code, so to speak. But really, the auditor is looking backwards. It's nice to look backwards, we're gonna look backwards too. But the whole purpose of this is to look forward in the end, to use what we can learn from that. We're gonna take a look at your capital expenses and your debt. These are two huge parts of any school district budget, and debt is very important. Many times debt occurs when you do capital projects, as you all know, and of course it's related to building aid, which we call expense-driven aids, because you're expending money to get state support. And then we're also going to look at bands and bonds. So these are debt instruments where you borrow money. We're going to take a look at the use of the capital reserves and your capital reserve that you have. We're going to take a look at your debt service schedules, how much debt you have for the next 20 years, and what potential debt you could get. We're going to look at all expense-driven aids. Now this would be, for instance, students with special need type aids. This would be transportation aid, building aid, those types of things. We're going to try and take a look at those revenues. We're going to take a look at the tax cap implications. In the most recent years, your district is basically stuck to the cap, which is very good. But I must tell you, in the early years of the tax cap, that wasn't the case with your district. And it was, that really has caused some significant problems going forward, because what happened there is, when those tax caps weren't collected, it depressed your levy, I'd say forever. And you can't go back and get it. You could go back and get it with huge tax increases, but no one desires that, obviously. We're going to take a look at your debt service fund and or reserves. We're going to actually look at both of them. I hope you're familiar that you know you have a general fund that actually operates the district day in, day out. And part of that general fund section is called restricted reserves. We're going to go over those actually tonight. And we also have something known as the debt service fund, where you have some money set aside to help absolve yourself of debt. You have a school lunch fund, for instance. You have a capital fund to help pay for your capital projects. We're looking at all of those items. We're also looking at the reports of the Comptroller of New York State. I dare say the Comptroller wants to make sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, and that's fine. But unfortunately, the rules that the Comptroller is using, as nice as they are, they're ancient. And they're not necessarily keeping us up to date, which we really need. So when I do my final report, I'll be pointing out places where maybe the Comptroller may be critical, and I think the Comptroller's visiting their school districts, so brace yourself. But the other thing is that I may find as a financial advisor that perhaps they may not see the use for them, but looking into the future, I do. The Comptroller looks backwards. We're going to look backwards and then look forward. I think they do a nice job in the reports, but again, it doesn't help us going forward. We're going to take a look at your funds, and I mean funds called appropriated and unappropriated fund balances. So there's always a difference in school districts between your budgeted revenues and your budgeted expenses. They try to mask it sometimes, but there's always a real difference, okay? And we're going to take a look at that, and we're also going to look at how much cash you have on hand, because cash flow is the lifeblood of a district. Matter of fact, your bond rating is going to be determined by how much fund balance and cash flow you have. So when you go borrow money for this capital project, you're going to be looking at how much money you have. The less you have, the higher your rates are going to be. We're going to take a look at projected teachers' retirement and employees' retirement system rates. Now, we're not trying to pick on anybody here, but the key thing is they are a big ticket item in your budget. And those rates are going up. ERS, the employees' retirement system rates, going up 16% this year. And keep in mind that those rates are leveraged against salaries. So when salaries go up and the rates go up simultaneously, you get a compounding effect. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at the implications of the loss of federal grants, the Coronavirus Relief Act, and also the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan. We're going to take a look at the loss of those federal grants. Every school district in the state of New York lost those grants as of September 24, 2024. There was a big chance by school districts to build fund balances and buy things that they normally could not afford, and that includes people, professionals to help out with the kids, to relieve them from some of the learning loss. You could help with capital projects. You could do a lot of things with those. The problem is, all that money is now gone, and literally you are on your own. The next thing is determination of future expense escalations. I'm doing a number of these. I'm working all over the state doing these. I've done these for a really long time. And I must tell you that we're starting to see some huge escalators here. One is like health insurance is a big escalator, huge escalator. Your district in particular is going to be a big issue, I think, coming up. So I think we're going to have to take a look at that and come up with some ideas for you. But we're going to try and project where that appears to be going into the next 5 years. I'm going to try and do a projection to the year 2930 for you. After we get past there, it's really kind of dicey. And then we're going to also look at, I did interviews with your interim business official, Michelle, and Dan have been very gracious with their time, and I've driven them absolutely crazy digging things up. But they've always come through for me because we are trying to really get to the bottom of some big ticket items. We will not count paper clips, how much paper you use, and things like this. We're after the big ticket items, okay? Because those are the ones that escalate more. In other words, if paper goes up at 5%, you're spending $100,000 on paper, that's different than certain other items, say health insurance, going up at, say, 10% when you're spending millions of dollars on it. So we have to use our energy where it pays off the most. All right, so let's just take a look at this left-hand side of the slide. So I'm going to take you through this. I'm going to walk you through it so that you don't get lost in the data, but there's a lot of data here. This is state aid as you know it, as your district should know it. And if you notice on the left-hand side are all the categories for state aid. So the first one I want to bring up here is foundation aid. So let's just, let's see here. I don't think, it sounds like parts of this aren't working. There it is, foundation aid at the top. Now, take a look at your foundation aid, and you'll see between the 22-23, 23-24 year, it went up a pretty sizable amount of money. Looks like maybe $576,000 or so. I must tell you, for a district your size, that was chump change compared to what other people got. And part of it's because of enrollment issues. Okay, many districts are losing enrollment over time. Now, enrollment's not measured in this formula just on what your enrollment was last year to this year. They really look back to 2007. They're looking back to see what's happened between those years and now. If you'll notice going into the 23-24 year, so let me see if I can pull this over here. You'll notice now the difference is 0, and the difference between 25 and 26 is 0. The state actually believes they have given you more than enough money in foundation aid. Please, when you look at the page, look at the size of the number for foundation aid and compare it to the sizes of the numbers of all the other 8 categories. You will see it is the largest by far. Matter of fact, it makes up more than half of your aid. So think of it this way. Districts have 2 huge sources of revenue. There's a bunch of little ones, but there's 2 huge ones, state aid and taxes. So think of it as you have 2 jobs to keep your household going. And one of the jobs, they're telling you in a big part of it, they're not going to give you a raise ever again. This is going to put pressure on your budget because it's decreasing the rate of increase of your revenues. Matter of fact, that big category, that 17 million, as far as the state's concerned, might be frozen like forever. Now, there have been initiatives by certain legislators to actually decrease your rate. But so far, the governor hasn't done that. Last year, during her presentation in January, her proposal was to decrease your rate. The legislature nixed that and got you back to 0. Now, that is better than losing the money, if you understand what I'm getting at, but it still leaves you pretty vulnerable. Now, if we keep going down the page, you see it says high tax aid. Now, do you have high tax aid because you have high taxes? There's no evidence that is true. And I'll tell you why. Because when high tax aid was started over a decade ago, there was such an uproar over the formula and how it was inequitable and improperly done. The legislature, rather than take money away from people, simply kept giving everybody who got it the same amount of money. And they have not run the formula since. So there's really no evidence you would still be eligible for it if they were to do that. By the way, that's just a little under 400,000. Then we have summer transportation aid, transportation aid. These 2 aid categories go up and they go down. They go up and they go down. They're based on costs with your transportation system, some of which are allowable and some not. And it's also how many buses you buy and actually how you finance them, the cost of the buses, and so on. So those go up and down all the time. Depends upon each year, okay? So that's it. But there's spend to get programs. In other words, when you buy a bus, someone could say, well, you're getting state aid on the bus. Yeah, but they're not paying for the whole bus. They're only paying for a portion of the bus. You pay for the rest of it. Then we've got down here building aid, and building aid fluctuates as well. So when you do a building project, and let's just make up a number. Let's just say you have 85% building aid on your building project, and you have to amortize the debt for 15 years. Would you get 85% a year? Not exactly, because your building aid ratio actually changes every year by a couple, say tenths of a point in most cases. So it does tend to vacillate, so we see vacillations in it. Also, we're going to look at your debt service schedule. I'm trying to find out how even it is. If you want to keep your tax cap flat, one of the things you have to do is keep your debt service flat and your aid flat. And when we do our final report, we'll talk more about that. BOCES aid. BOCES aid. So BOCES aid tends to vacillate too, because sometimes school districts buy a lot of technology in one year and not so much the next. Or they send more kids to career and technical education one year and not the next. Now, you may be saying, well, it depends on how many students with special needs we send to BOCES each year. The answer is no. That's in foundation aid. Students with special needs that go to BOCES do not receive BOCES aid. All special ed aid is either in foundation aid or it's in the next couple aids going down, the excess cost aid, the public and private. So public excess cost aid would be kids who are going to high-cost programs, we'll say BOCES. You pay a certain amount to begin with, you hit a threshold, and the state gives you a percentage pass there. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about that number. If you'll notice here in public excess cost aid, you're getting $582,000 in aid, or thereabouts, depending on which year you're looking at. but you're probably spending $750 at least to get it. So it's only a partial reimbursement. Your private excess cost aid, you're getting $1 million in aid, but you're spending a lot more than $1 million to get the aid. So what happens is you are always fronting the money. The next thing I think we got to look at is software, library, textbook, and hardware. And you see some red numbers there, differences, and you see some black numbers and differences. The differences are very small because your enrollment isn't moving much. This at least is an enrollment projection annually. So this can go up and this can go down based on how many kids you have. It's a per student amount. Then we have the universal pre-K, and you'll notice it's an orange. It's an orange for a reason, and the reason is that that money does not get deposited into your general fund. It's put in a special fund called the Special Aid Fund for this purpose. Now keep in mind that even though the aid is available, you don't necessarily always get it. So you'll notice that in the blue lines there, you're eligible 23-24 for $469,000 UPK aid, but in 24-25 it's got $762. So it looks like, look at all the aid we're going to get. But you notice I put down the difference is 0. And that's because you have to have room, you have to be able to fill the slots, you have to have demand. In most communities, they require you to, they won't send the kids to the program unless you transport the kids. By the way, there's no transportation aid for UPK kids, so you're on your own. And in many cases, UPK programs cost more than the aid because the aid was designed to be seed money for the program. But I must tell you as an educator, because I was also an educator for many years, it's a great program for kids. It's really what you want in your school district. It's excellent to have, but you have to be able to fund it as well. And then you have supplemental public access cost aid, a whopping $617, and that's frozen because there was a big to-do about that formula as well, so they just kept it in practice. So if you look at the bottom line, and I mean the total overall aid increase without UPK, you'll see it's really not moving much, and if it is, it's moving down. So this is one of your major sources of revenue, so we got to dig into this. Now, the interesting thing about today's date is today was the State of the Union by the governor. The governor then, today at 1 o'clock, told everybody all the things she wants to put in the budget, but she has not disclosed the budget. She won't do that any sooner than January 21st. In January 21st, 22nd, or 23rd, we should be able to get at least what they call the state aid runs, some updates to your state aid. Those will not be etched in stone until no earlier than, April 1st, when the legislature acts. And of course, then you'll have 2 weeks to solidify your budget once you know your real state aid numbers. So the problem is we will have a report obviously before that, but the key thing is that, to give an accurate report, we'd have to give it about when you're doing at the end of your budget, because that's when we know the real numbers, because that's how the state operates. Now, there's some other things I think we've got to point out here. One is the safe harmless business is really important. I can't overemphasize it. You are $317,000 into safe harmless, which means, according to the state's calculations, you are now receiving $317,000 you're not eligible for in foundation aid. There was a Rockefeller report. I don't know if you heard about the Rockefeller report. I'm also the executive director of the statewide school finance consortium, so I made a bunch of recommendations to increase aid to school districts. The Rockefeller report embraced almost every single one of them, so we're really proud. We're walking around like peacocks. But the key thing is we don't know if the governor or the legislature will embrace them because we believe they will cost more money. And I think the state's going to start getting pretty much cash strapped here. But the thing is even if they were to embrace some of the changes, you'd have to embrace $317,000 in changes for you to get you to stay at 0. Do you understand what I just said? So there's the piece that's really important to know. Let's just take a look at those reserves for a second here. So we've got a reserve tab here. We're stopping it right now at June 24th because that's the official data that we have in the school district. And you have a number of reserves. You've got the workers' compensation and unemployment reserve. Now, to tell you the truth, you just started your workers' compensation reserve just recently, which is nice, and it's nice to have that Because all you need is a couple people tripping and falling in the work zone, claiming and suing you, and then having major cause, and you've got a real expense. I've already been through this a couple times, even professionally during my career. It's no joke. The people lawyer up. It's amazing. Unemployment, of course, is 127, which seems appropriate right now. The controller might like to see that at 25,000 because maybe you haven't unemployed a bunch of people in the past. But we're starting to see a lot of districts with retirements or over, right sizing and things like this. So we'll take a look at that going into the future. You've got reserved for the ERS and TRS, and you'll see you've got a good chunk of change in there. But as I mentioned to you before, we're going to study this. Those are hugely expensive pension plans. So we're going to have to take a look at that. Based on the districts I'm working with, I work with between 300 and 400 districts. That's not an inordinate amount, so that's actually pretty good. Property loss, you don't have any money in there, but I don't think you need any except for this flood. If this keeps happening, I put some money into property loss, to be honest with you, because you can't keep taking a hit. Even if you get deductibles, it's not the same, okay? So it's really not the same. Okay, and reserve for liability, you had $200,000, you settled the case there for liability, so that reserve has been eliminated, which is a good practice, excellent by the board. Insurance reserve. Now, if you had a Child's Victim Act claim by an ex-employee, or what, not by an ex-employee, by an ex-student or someone who worked here for some sexual harassment or something like that, some of your neighbors, by the way, have these claims, and they're millions of dollars. So let me give you an example of this claim. I could say, I went to Saugerties back in 1972, and Mr. Jones sexually assaulted me. And now I want $2 million because he ruined my life. And I sue you. The problem you have is the insurance company you probably had in 1972 doesn't exist. So now you're on the hook. Now, if you had that claim, I would say put some money in there. But I would go to your attorney, they would evaluate the claim, and then they would advise you on how much should be in there. But you don't have that claim. That does not mean you won't get a claim. It's still good to the end of the year. And I think the legislature wants to renew it for another year, so people can still make claims. All right, let's just take a look at what else we got here. Tax certiorari. Some of your neighbors, we've just paid out millions of dollars in tax certiorari claims. These things are killers. Now, the tax certiorari claim is supposed to work like this. When you get a claim, and I mean a legal claim, I don't mean like you think you're going to get sued for a tax certiorari claim. You have to have a claim. You get it from your assessor, you hear about it that way, you turn it over to your attorney, and you try and figure out what your liability is if the claim is settled. Sometimes these claims take 5, 6 years, sometimes they take 2 years, they can take forever. Many of them take 3 to 5. Over that period of time, the amount of the claim actually escalates. So let's just say I'm a business, and I think I was overassessed, and therefore I paid to you $50,000 more taxes than I thought I should have. I file a claim. Next year, if it's not adjudicated, I can use the 50 plus the increase in taxes. So now I'm at like 70. So 70 and 50 is 120. Does everybody see how this is working? And the claim keeps growing until it's adjudicated because I have to still be required to pay the amount. Districts that do not save the money are faced with a couple decisions. One is, depending upon the size of the claim, obviously, they can take it out of the fund balance. They can fire people to save money, or they can go borrow the money. And when you borrow the money, you pay interest on the money, and there's no state support for it. And it will be simply added to your budget. And if your budget, then you're going to have to find a levy to support your budget. Do you understand what I'm talking about now? So in other words, it's like your costs just went up a lot, and you've got to find a new job somewhere. So that's part of the problem. You do have neighbors that work with me that we went and borrowed money we're paying interest on. Depending upon the size of the claim compared to the size of your budget, and your attorney figures this out to take care of your legal liability, you may only have 5 years to pay the money back. It's not like you have 15, 20. Depends. Some are 5, some are 10, but many of them are 5, and they're big amounts. So you could inherit that, a couple $1 million over a couple of years quickly. So this one here is very dicey. So to me, we always advise to be cautious because we're supposed to be fiduciaries. We're supposed to protect you, and you want to, I'm sure, help protect the taxpayers. The idea is when you get the claim, find out what your liability is, put the money in the reserve, and don't screw around. The next thing we've got down here is the accrued, reserve for benefits and accrued liabilities. This is used when people sever their relationship from the district. It's used to pay for unused sick, personal, and vacation days, and that's all it can be used for. General Municipal Law 6P, misuse of the fund is subject to a misdemeanor, all parties, that would be like all you, because you are the CFOs. So we gotta do this right. So the key thing here is if you have a retirement incentive, for instance, for staff or something, and it's based on unused sick, personal, or vacation days, you could take the money out of here. This is so it does not hit your budget in case you have to do something like that. The next one are the capital reserves. Now these capital reserves, I've got 4 of them in here. You don't have 4 of them. But the reason I have 4 of them in here, because I think we gotta think about how capital reserves work and what they're used for. Capital reserves are very special reserves. They're education law reserves, 3651. So what happens here, a capital reserve cannot be created by a school district without voter approval. So in other words, the community must say to you, yes, we want you to save money for that purpose. I love it because it's full transparency. You're showing people what you're saving for. The resolution to create the capital reserve has 4 parts. It must say, what's the purpose of the reserve? So if you notice, I've got different purposes. I've got equipment and vehicle, I've got technology, capital construction, vehicle equipment, so you can have multiple capital reserves simultaneously, even for the same things. You must also say not only what it's for, you must say how long it will last, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's got to be in the resolution that's approved by voters. In other words, full transparency. The next thing you must have in it is what is the maximum amount of deposits that can be put into the reserve over the life of the reserve. 10 million, 5 million, 500,000, whatever it is. Okay? Now you cannot exceed that amount during the life of the reserve. You can accrue interest past that amount, but you cannot exceed the deposits. Mathematical example. Here we go. You've got a $5 million capital reserve, but you only have $4 million in it. Because you don't deposit it all at once, you deposit it as you see fit over time. So you have a $5 million permissible capital reserve. You have $4 million in it now. You take 1 out to do a capital project, leaving $3 million in it. The question then becomes, could you put 2 in it to finally get to the 5? The answer is no, because then all the deposits would have added to 6. So you got to have a plan. So I think one of the things we'll be talking to you about is capital plan and timing. Also, you can have one for equipment and vehicles. For instance, sometimes when we buy vehicles, I bought, for instance, a giant vehicle dump truck for a district this year for $180,000. That's what it's going for, by the way. Pickup trucks a couple of years ago, $30,000, $40,000, now $75,000, $80,000. Okay, so get ready. You got to scrap on with the prices here. So the thing is, what I think we've got to look at here is we've got to come up with a vehicle replacement schedule for this district. It's not like you got a tiny little district. So how much are these things going to cost for the next 5 years? Because we want to plan for the worst and hope for the best. Because hope alone isn't a plan. So the idea is to figure what's going on. Same thing with equipment. Maybe you have major equipment purchases. I've got a number of districts who are actually refitting all their trucks with plows in the front. That's a piece of equipment that, removes snow. Where I left, I just left 2 feet of snow, and we heading back into another foot on the way home. But, it depends on what you got, what your equipment needs are. But you can also have it for technology, for instance. For instance, in 2021, you sent everybody home with a laptop, including staff, everybody. And you've got infrastructure needs in here, in your buildings, all of them. They have to be updated, firmware, software upgrades, and all the rest of it. You got to replace all those laptops. So my question is, what's the plan? I don't care what the plan is. I just care what it's going to cost. If I know if your budget can take care of it. If not, we want to do something with the reserve, perhaps. I've also got in here, if you had buses, for instance, and I know you have contract transportation, but if you had a bus, maybe we want a bus replacement schedule. Also, we've got down here, in those capital reserves, got the one in blue that's yours, the one you have now, and it looks like you're getting prepped up for a capital project, and that's good planning. That is excellent planning, by the way. but you have nothing for equipment, technology, or vehicles, equipment, or things like that. I don't know if you know this, but during a capital project, say for instance, this is a cafeteria, you wanted to replace the furniture in here. You could in a capital project. You would advertise that furniture for 15 years, pay interest on it, and get no building aid on it, because furniture is not building aid eligible. You could start a reserve, buy the furniture out of the reserve, still won't be aidable, but you won't amortize it for 15 years. Think about it for a second, okay? I mean, would you go buy a couch and amortize it for 15 years? No. You'd say, well, buy the couch. So that's something to consider. Also on capital reserves, it takes voter approval to expend the money. Again, perfect transparency. Now you're saying to people, look, you allowed us to save the money for this purpose. The time has come to spend this money. We want to spend it now. Here's why, and you explain it and ask for a voter approval. I think it's a great way to keep faith with the community. Reserve for repair. Not a favorite fan of mine, even though you had a repair recently. To me, if you wanted to put 10, 20, 40,000 in or something like that to cover maybe a couple things, fine. But most repairs are not state aid eligible. Okay, so that's the problem. You want it in the capital project. In a capital project, you don't repair a boiler, you replace it. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what you don't repair the floor, you replace the floor. You don't repair a wire, you replace a wire. You don't fix a sidewalk, you install a sidewalk. That's what makes the state aid eligible. Now, reserve for debt, you are not eligible for that, because if you had sold one of your buildings and you still owe debt on it, you have to put the proceeds from the sale in that reserve to absolve you of the debt. That's not your situation. And other restricted reserves, you're not eligible, mainly because you don't have a nuclear power plant here. I have a couple of clients that actually have nuclear power plants or coal-fired power plants, and they're closing, and they're allowed to save money to offset the huge negative tax impact when that thing closes. Okay, it won't save them, by the way. They won't have enough money. It's going to be huge, but it'll take the edge off. Now, part of the thing we're starting to realize about this thing is, currently that capital reserve of yours is actually worth 37% of all your reserves. So when you do that next capital project, if you use that money, over a third of everything you've saved is now gone. So people would look at this normally, I got a lot of boards that say, look, we got 12.6 million in there. Yeah, but that 4.7 of it is for all the needs you have in every single building you have. And I think you have a building condition survey, probably longer than my arm, if you think about it, that you have to be fixed and things have to be done. And I got news for you, stuff is not getting any cheaper. Everybody thinks, well, inflation's gonna go away. That's not how inflation works for schools. It's not how inflation works in construction. So if I charge you $1,000 for a steel piece of beam, because of inflation, it used to be $500, don't expect that price to go down. It's not going down. Because once you pay the $1,000, or somebody does, it's always gonna be $1,000. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to point out. The next thing I think you gotta realize is that your employer's retirement system, your ERS and TRS, you are already gonna use some of these reserves in your budget, hypothetically. Now, I don't know if by the end of the year you're gonna need to, but you've already declared that you are willing to use those amounts of reserves right there. Out of the ERS, 852,000, and out of the TRS, 764. I'm not so sure it's something I want to do, because what it's going to do is take a look at it. Look at the ERS. 8 goes into 31 how many times? Not many. So you're going to depress that reserve amount rapidly if you do it. And the same thing for TRS. So to me, it looks like you're already counting on depleting the reserves. I don't know, we'll see. So if I was to project those reserves going forward, this is what I would get. What I would get is, I would depress the ERS reserve. If you do it once, you're going to have to keep doing it, because you won't be able to raise money any other way. So I think ERS, if you keep using the 852, like 27, 28, it'll be 300,000 in all. If you do it with the TRS, you'll be out of money by 27, 28. If we take the tax certiorari claim that's paid in the next 3 years, that money's gone. And then to make it worse, if you use the capital project, which is going to help you probably, in 28, 29, that money will be gone. So the 12,000,006 turns into 1,000,007 pretty fast. See what I'm talking about? This is why I worry. This is what keeps me up at night, even though I'm no longer a superintendent or a business official or a district superintendent. So there's more. That loss of reserve plan right now is about 1.66 million, it's another 13%. And of course, we still haven't taken a look at what you need in a capital project, the timing of it. We still don't know the vehicle purchases you need, and we don't know the tech and equipment purchases you need. That's what we're all working on now. So already I can see this could be tough. It's going to be pretty exciting. And none of it, of course, is getting less expensive. You do have a debt service fund. Now, the debt service fund is a special fund the money's placed into, and it usually gets in there 3 different ways. One is, let's just say you did $1 million capital project, and you spent $900,000 doing it. In other words, you stopped after spending $900 and said, let's not do the last 100. But you had already borrowed it. You would take that $100,000 difference and it has to go in this fund. Okay, that's how it would work. Now, the other way is if you borrow money and you get what they call a premium, which basically means 4 banks say, all right, well, we can get the money at 4%. Well, one of the banks says, well, we'll not only loan it to you at 4% like the other 3, but what we're going to do is we're going to hand you a check for $50,000 and help you with your first interest payment. To sweeten the pot, that's called a premium. That means they would win the bid. You must take that money, put it in there, and that money over time is supposed to be used to decrease your debt. Now, to me, that money is untapped, and if you're going to come up with a capital project plan, I am not your financial advisor. I'm only doing this project. I mean, I have my own clients that I am a financial advisor, but one of the things I've suggested to the district is that anything you do, that money be included in the plan. That money cannot be used to decrease, it cannot be used against new debt. It can only be used against existing debt. But the way you would do it is, in the same years you acquire the new debt, you would use it against existing debt to make room for the new debt. Think of, give me an example. My mortgage payment's $1,000, my truck payment is $250. And it comes time to get a new truck, and I'm keeping my mortgage payment going. And I say to Uncle Louie, I said, Uncle Louie, I'd like to get this new truck, but now they want the payments at $300, and I can't afford it. And he said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. What's the difference, 50 bucks? Why don't I just give you 50 bucks until the truck's paid off? Then the hit to me is still the 250. See, does everybody understand where this is going? You do or you don't? Sounds like we have to do a class on it. We'll get it. Okay, we can do that. Okay. And the next one is school lunch fund, and you're doing really well with your school lunch fund. So that is excellent news. So that's real good. And I think a lot of it's attributable to your CDEP plan. Everybody breakfast, lunch type of thing. Okay, so what does the future hold? Well, first of all, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and figure out during the month of February how much money you're going to end up with in a month at June 30th. That is not easy. Okay, we have interim business officials working very, very well, and I've got to tell you, Michelle's been a lifesaver for us. But I think the key thing is she doesn't have to run your budget every year. But we're going to have to try and figure out how much money you're going to spend and how much money you're going to get in by June 30th, somewhere in February. So that's going to be the tough part. So we have to figure out how much money we can carry over, because we need to either build reserves or use it to balance next year's budget. Keep in mind when you're budgeting that the budget is like half art, half calculation, if this makes any sense. For instance, does anybody here know, anybody in the room, know exactly how many kids with special needs we will have next year in 4th grade? Anybody? No, but he probably knows exactly, because some people, I know we have special ed, right? I'm not worried. You know why? Because here's what's happened to me. 4 kids moved in a single year. There were option 4 kids that were $200,000 a pop at a special school, and my district inherited $800,000 in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Now, luckily for me, they were trying to get away from social services, and they were running across the state, and 2 months later they left. But I felt bad because those kids really need a lot of help. But boy, we inherited a lot of cost. And no stack form, no form for special ed was enough to cover that. So, nice try, though. It was a good one. I thought you had me, right? Okay, so the thing is it's really hard. Okay, so I think we're gonna try our best. It's also your historical data. One of the things I gotta tell you, I'm gonna say this right now out loud, and I think I'm just gonna be honest. You gotta get stability in a business office. You gotta have somebody who's gonna stay here and be here and get this thing done. Because we got this up, this down, this over, that over, which we're finding out. So trying to get an historical context here has been very, very difficult. Now, Michelle's off to pile through everything, but remember, every business official has a way to do this or a way to do that. And when they keep changing chairs, it's not helpful, okay, in terms of trying to get a handle on it. Reevaluate purchases and staff need. I've already said to your superintendent, probably much to his chagrin, because I speak plainly, what that is. I would send out a note telling everybody, don't buy anything else, we're not buying anything else. And that's because I don't know what the future holds, and I'm a little concerned about it. If you didn't need it by now, I used to say you didn't need it. Now, there are exceptions, of course. Kids need maybe you get 2 more kids in physics, and you need some more books, or something like that happens. There's exceptions, obviously, but I call it mission critical. We gotta start counting the money. So Michelle and I and Dan are gonna count the money as best we can by the end of the year, before the end of the year. And we haven't been here. If that makes any sense. That's what we're trying to do. So, but what you gotta do is, you also gotta take a look at your staffing. Now, your principal did an excellent job of telling you about all the things that great staff is doing. But at the same time, the question I'm gonna have is, how much of the staff came on board that we didn't have before in numbers, FTEs, for federal funds that we would like to have, but can we afford to have any longer? So that's something we're gonna have to take a look at. That's terrible to say, but and my daughter's a teacher, so she'd kill me, but the truth of it is we gotta do it. We also wanna know that you start looking for attrition and breakage. So if Rick was working for you and then Rick leaves, he retires, he gets another job, he gets hit by a fast moving truck, whatever happens to Rick, the old way of looking at things was, who are we gonna get to replace Rick? I think the new way of doing it is we're gonna have to say, do we need to replace Rick? Perhaps you don't need to replace Rick, but you need something that Rick wasn't doing done. So there is what they call attrition and breakage. And then monitor scarce resources. Scarcity first. I gotta tell you something. Districts around the state can't find bus drivers, they can't find maintenance mechanics, they can't find business officials. The superintendent's handout just came out last Friday. There's a page of superintendent openings. You can't find school psychologists, you can't find French teachers, you can't find maintenance mechanics, you can't find social workers, special ed teacher, you can't find dual certified foreign language teachers. The list goes on. They're just not entering the field. Right now, I think there's 5 people graduating from Brockport in the business ed program that 20 years ago I taught in, and we were graduating 30 at a pop. So keep in mind, well, there's 2 messages there. One is these are going to be hard to fill. Number 2 is you have to be competitive to get them. Okay. Cost escalations, I already talked about. Escalations of long-term expenditures, and you have limitations on revenues, I mentioned already. And then we need to look at long-range plans, because I don't think the cavalry from the state is going to arrive anymore. We might get a little help maybe this year in a couple things. If they update the formula, maybe some places might get help. But the truth of it is, states having an Oprah moment, I call it. You get a car, you get a car, you get a grant, money for this, money for that. Not that that is bad, I'm not criticizing it. But what happens is, their pie is only so big, right? And there's like more pieces trying to help out more people, I think. Good motive, but I think it's going to be a problem. We got to take a look at your reserves and your fund balances by the end of the year and into the future. The loss of the COVID money is catastrophic. I don't know if you noticed, you've got millions of dollars in COVID money. So it's going to be a problem. State aid, you are state harmless, as I pointed out when I went over the state aid. And I'm still worried about the zero-emission bus mandate, which has not gone away. I was hoping something would happen to alter that. Now, many districts that have contract busing say it has nothing to do with us, we have contract busing. That is not true at all. I'm your contractor for busing, let's pretend. I buy about 3 zero-emission buses, and I don't use any of them in your school district. I'm going to charge you for them anyway. That's what's going to happen. Just keep that in mind. Oh, and I got to have the charges, and I got to have the infrastructure. So I'm going to have to build all that. Now, if this gets altered and go away a little bit, or pushed down the line, we might get some reprieve. It's not that zero emissions is a bad idea. It's just I don't know if anybody's got enough money. I don't even think the state has enough money to pay the aid. We got to revisit capital construction, vehicle replacement, equipment and technology we talked about, and we're going to monitor the tax gap in your appropriated fund balance. So we've got a full plate to do. We're hot on it right now. We're digging through things. We're trying to figure out how everything works in your district. But I wanted you to know that we're going to be as comprehensive as we can, but we're not counting paper clips. Okay? Are there any questions I can answer for the board? Well, listen.
I don't have anything. Anybody have any questions?
No.
It's a lot to digest.
It is. Oh, wait till I do the report.
So normally you cut off, you cut off any purchase orders around April sometime?
No, I cut off in December, yeah.
We're doing that right now, right?
Yeah, well, I think you should, it's up to them what they do, but.
Yeah, okay.
In other words, if you really need it,
Yeah.
it's mission critical, gotta have it for the kids, gotta have it in the program, you buy it. But the idea is, see, to me, here's how it works. A business off July 1, 60 million purchase orders go out and are ready. Then everything comes in over the summer mostly, a couple things trail into the fall, then we should be ready. What we don't want is people running around going, geez, looks like I got 2,000 left in this budget, what can we buy? That's what we want to avoid. Not that anybody would do that, but just saying. You gotta get a handle on the money. Make sense?
Any other questions?
Yeah, just for the capital reserve for the technology, does that include like data security, or is that just hard wired stuff?
In the resolution, your bond counsel would write the resolution, okay? We would work with your bond counsel. And we would be interviewing the district to find out what exactly you consider to be technology. Right now, on the tab I have in our spreadsheet we're working on, it includes all those things. Safety, security, it would be cameras, security, the blue lights, whatever you want to call it. It could be motion detectors.
Well, I meant more sort of data security, like.
Yes, it can also be
internal
data security, it could be
systems
programs, it could be systems, it could be wire drops, it can be firmware, hardware, software, upgrades, all that stuff. And what would happen there, just to answer your question, is they would say, we want to create technology reserve that would include such items as, and we would list out a bunch of them to make sure you're covered. Okay, in the resolution, so the voters know what they're voting for. Okay. Anything else? All right,
Thank you, Dr. Prince. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, public recognition. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the board, now is the time. Just come up to the podium. Okay. Superintendent's report. If you're allocating time to Dr. Timms, you have 37 seconds to do your blueprint analysis.
Game on. Before we do though, this is not my time limit. I just want to recognize Mr. Wickham. This will be his last board meeting with him. He'll be retiring at the end of the month. First hired in 1993, I'm told, as a business teacher, chaired the business department for a number of years, coached multiple sports teams throughout the years. He's been behind the scenes with us, I think, since COVID, and does anything fantastic. All right, update on the blueprint. Jump to the update. So priority one. So if you recall, priority one has to do with providing students with individually academic challenging experience that emphasizes the development of skills, acquisition of knowledge, and aligns with the Saugerties course for graduate and New York standards. So I did just identify some things I want to highlight tonight. I will send the full summary to the board with other information as well. So first and foremost, portrait of a graduate, we spent time at our December DLT meeting, district leadership team meeting, to brainstorm this. We'll continue to refine this and work with this to get this approved by the board hopefully by the end of the year on what a portrait of a graduate will look like. Partnerships. So we've spent a lot of time working with partnerships this year. One thing we are going to do is have one document with all of our community partners, what they've done for us, whether it be a donation or resource. Other things I do want to highlight publicly is Element Magnetics, the Council of Industries, as well as Viking corrugated cardboard. We've had several meetings with them. We are actually, Ellen and I pitched to our students at the high school to make a video for them for their website. Our students actually just kind of pitched back their proposal with Ms. Hayes this morning, and I guess the feedback was very good, very positive about that. So that's us kind of branching out and using our community partners to enhance our experiences for our students. Also in the realm of priority area 1 is review for current progress monitoring procedures, provide professional development on best practices, and create common guidelines. So MTSS has been receiving professional development on progress monitoring. iReady consultant has been providing 2 rounds of instructional coaching as well. Dr. Jen and Principal Tryon have been meeting with our kindergarten teachers across the district to solicit feedback on current assessments, progress monitoring systems, and procedures. So getting their input as to how do we move forward for the best for our students. And then in terms of our goal for project-based learning, phenomenon-based learning, we've had 3 high school science teachers attend professional learning on the new investigations for science, and then 6 of our high school teachers actually went to a regional training at Kingston High School for the new investigations as well. And our planned pilot is ongoing. Research and revamping report cards, grades 3 through 5. We're looking to have a committee to begin looking at standards-based report cards to extend for grades 3 through 5. And also grading for equity book study. Ms. Stefano led a book study last year, which was a big success, and is doing it again this year.
Dr. Hershey, do you want us to hold questions or do it based on slide?
You can.
I was just curious, I'm reading through this. Why is it only grades 3 through 5?
So we've already done it K through 2.
Done K
So
through
it's, so on the report, just to be clear, right, it doesn't say reading, viewers, and grades, it's gonna have the literacy standards, and then if this child is progressing, meeting, or exceeding.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then in terms of developing common language, behavior management language, including restorative practices, we've had several restorative practice sessions in our conference days. Goal 2 is to increase family and community engagement. One big thing I heard from several community members was having parents be more aware at the secondary level of what their students are taking. So we're going to have a meeting actually next week about reviewing how we can get parents to sign off on either courses that students identify that they want to take or their actual schedules. So we'll see how we can implement that. Parent workshops. Cahill had a survey go out. You heard Mr. Tryon explain how he was going to have a survey go out with his parents to get feedback for that. And then gradebook. What will a gradebook look like? A common gradebook. So we do have a gradebook committee that has met 3 times so far this year. The researching the capacities of Infinite Campus. But just to kind of summarize that briefly, right now, and our student rep can tell you, some teachers use Google Classroom, some teachers share grades at Infinite Campus, some teachers use Schoology, right? So how do we get everything in one spot so that parents, kids can all know how they're doing at any moment in time, within reason, right? It's not going to be instantaneous, but within reason.
And just for for our discussion, the target for that is September 25.
Correct. So
online for next year.
yes. So I'm hoping to get the report from the committee, and then ultimately be my decision to implement in September.
And then is the Infinite Campus is the space where that will happen?
Well, that's part of the decision. So Infinite Campus is our student management system,
Right.
right? So that's where all the student information is contained, whether their demographic stuff, their schedule stuff, and so forth. There are some benefits and cons to using that versus Google Classroom. But from what I hear from parents is they're really concerned about, right, how is my child doing? Not necessarily what does the assignment look like. So kind of 2 different things about the educational platform versus the reporting.
So just for clarity, so I think everybody understands. So as a district, we already own Infinite Campus. We use components of it. We're not using the gradebook today, and that's one of the things they're evaluating.
We're not widely using the grade.
Widely used.
Yes,
Okay.
there are some teachers.
It's not our standard.
Correct,
Right,
yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But all teachers have to put their grade in the quarterly grades, because that's like our official documents. So some teachers do not put every individual assignment into Infinite Campus, they might just put at the end of the quarter, my child got 85. Whereas other teachers, my son has one teacher who puts all of his assignments in there, so I can see all the assignments. Professional culture, right? So create, foster, nurture superior quality professional learning tailored to all staff needed for student success. Research ways to implement instructional rounds, learning walks for Japanese learning studies. This has been a big success so far this year. So we have done learning walks at the junior high level for engagement. We've also done it for math in terms of math practices, sorry. We've also done it at the elementary level for fourth grade. And then just the other day, Director of Special Ed took around the state representative and went to co-taught classrooms to go around there as well. So this is a big shift. Ultimately, it would be great if one day we have teachers join us on those walks and have conversations afterwards and improve instruction all the way around. Research and develop a plan to incorporate more student voices to provide feedback in developing a positive school culture. We've got student councils in each one of our buildings. Students are involved in the BLTs, and we're also tasking students with certain things, especially at the junior high and senior high levels. One of the big things that's come up is using bathrooms for the bathroom purpose, not for vaping or other things. So trying to start a campaign there, get the message out, right, having students be their best advocates for those types of things. Lastly, priority 4 is a Sawyer student experience. We will create an environment where all students want to come to school and where they feel welcome, successful, and we're recognized for their efforts and support all areas. So ensure all students are aware of opportunities available to them based on their interest. So this has to do with our counselors pushing into grade levels for scheduling overviews, giving them the highlights of where their choices lie and what is going on. Promote and advertise courses offered. Ms. Vale is kind of spearheading the charge to updating our course catalog and making it more user-friendly as to, if I'm in 9th grade, what courses am I really can I take, what are my options? We talked about developing a plan to increase alumni presenters to current students. Once again, Ms. Vale is going to be having a Q&A with junior high students, with our 6th grade students as they go to the junior high. Utilize faculty meetings for diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. We've had this throughout, as you've heard about our engagement continuum, and it's rubbing off into the community. It is nice when my own children yell at each other for for avoiding. Research methods to measure student engagement, obviously our continuum, and then create opportunities for students to learn and teach from each other. So this could really be transformational. And once again, Ms. Vale at the junior senior high school and Ms. DeFino, they have teachers in grades 8 and grade 7 who are planning on having their students present culminating presentations at the end of the year. So last year, we had Genius Day at the end of the year, led by Ms. DeFino, same idea. Students presented their work to a group. This is going to be a bigger spin-off of that. I know that I spoke very fast.
Is the course catalog, is that something, when we talk about parents signing off, which I know came up, not this last one, but the last leadership meeting, is that something that's going to be available to parents, that they can look at the course catalog and sit with their kids?
So the course catalog is available online, so it's also a matter of us getting the information out there as well, kind of going through, but then having it be in a usable interpretive format.
Got it, okay.
Anything else? All right. It wasn't 47 seconds, but.
It was good. Close. Okay. Board member remarks. We'll start down at this end of the table. Michael, nothing. Stella Rosa, none.
I'm not going to use the mic. I'm just going to speak out. I think that we just spoke about community engagement, and we had community members who were here to speak tonight. I think it's a consideration if community members want to speak, want to address the board, and we know that we have a lot of presentations set before them that I don't know whether we can take a vote, whether or speak on it, about moving the public comment up rather than make them sit to wait an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes only to leave and not engage with us. I don't think that that's a good way
Yeah.
of.
It's our agenda, so we can we can talk about the agenda and move things around, and
Okay.
we can change it every month, but the order is, we decide on the order.
Right,
of
we
what
come
it is.
in and we can say,
Yeah,
wow, I know there are 10 people here.
Yeah.
We raise our hand and then say,
we have
I
to
make
make,
a
if we do it at a meeting, we have to make a motion
right.
and move it around. But
Okay.
I'm saying beforehand, this
So
structure here is
procedural
ours.
for me. This is
Yeah.
procedural for me to know,
Yep.
because I did speak to that moving up the public comment section before the elementary, you know, presentation and, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of if we want to do it every time, or if we have,
We should
I'll
do
be
it
honest
if
with
we
you,
know that
I
we-
didn't think Mr. Timms' thing, when I saw 6 pages, I didn't think it was going to go that long. He went into a level of detail. So, but if it's something ongoing, it's, like I said, it's our agenda, we can move it around. Yeah. Skip you.
Okay, skip me.
Mr. Wall?
Yes, I'd just like to thank Mr. Tryon and Ms. Pettit and all the students, and thank you for hosting us. And certainly thank you, everybody that sets up any of these rooms, whether it's Riccardi or any of our other buildings that we go on tour. It's a lot of work, right, when you look at the number of people that are actually involved and the time that we spend here, so thank you for that. And just looking forward, you know, we talk about a lot of things, you know, all the time. We talk about, and Mr. Timms even pointed out, you know, some of the types of vacancies that you see in school system that we're having trouble filling. So when I look at our agenda, I really, truly want to congratulate and thank all of those people that are going to be approved to either work here for Saugerties School District, volunteer to help in our district. And certainly those retirees, commend them for the time that they've spent with us. It's a nice feeling to know that we still are, you know, a district that people want to stay and work in, and it's something worth noting when we look at all these appointments. You know, I was going to talk a little bit about some of the Rockefeller Institute recommendations, and Mr. Timms kind of alluded to that. I think, you know, when we look at the district budget calendar is going to begin, technically has begun, right, with these conversations. But I know next February, you know, there's going to be an initial budget presented to the board and things like that. I just encourage everybody to try and work and develop as much fluency as they can and pick up and follow along a lot of these topics, because we are in the budget cycle at this point. We are in the budget development season, so it's worthwhile thinking about that. I won't go on too much more about that. Good luck to all of our students that will be taking Regents exams this January. Thank you.
Hello, okay. I don't want to go on long either. I just want to thank Mr. Tryon and his students for coming and doing such a wonderful presentation. It's really nice to see some of those students who were just kindergartners at Mount Marion that I worked with, and now they're 5th and 6th graders. It's nice to see that they've grown and become a part of this community. I also just want to thank those people who are retiring and, like Bill said, coming on board, especially Ms. Kendall, who's in the audience, who I've worked directly with, and Mr. Wickham, who is always at everything and does such a tremendous job. So I just want to thank them and wish them all the happiness and healthiness that retirement brings.
Yeah, I want to thank the Riccardi students. They're not here, but just for being brave and vulnerable. And the 500-word essay reminded me of 500-word essay I had to write on why I should be quiet in class. It started as 300 and then it got up to 500 somehow. I also wanted to sort of acknowledge the teachers, students, and parents that the kids referenced as helping them when they talked about their challenges, right? So I think it's you know, that it's brave to stand up there, and it's brave to stand up there and say, this is a challenge I had. And I think that that's great, and that it's other people that help them. So I just wanted to sort of acknowledge that, because I think that the daily interactions that we have with everybody, those are the things that make the difference in children's learning and our own development. And sort of to that end, this is an amazing group of people that we have up here, and I feel like partly because of the way our tables are sometimes set up, there's a sort of performative aspect to our board meetings, but you know, we are all volunteers here, and this monthly board meeting is our opportunity to talk to one another. So to that end, I've talked to several board members about it, and with Dan and Jeffrey, and so I invite everybody to come to our board meeting in February at the library, where we may have a little bit of a different seating setup that I think will help us really feel like we're having a conversation together, and that this is our meeting in public, that it's not a public meeting. And those are really two very different things, and I think that we have gotten the board to a place where we can have these difficult and deep conversations, and now we need to actually sort of manifest that physically. So I just invite everybody, it's sort of a superpower I have is arranging furniture. Also to the end of sort of increasing communication and conversation, all the board members received 2 invites today. One is for office hours, one are virtual office hours, which will be on Tuesdays online from 7 to 8, and I will use Google Meets for that, even though I don't like very much. And then the other will be at Wednesdays for now, from 8:30 to 10 o'clock in the morning at Josie's on Partition Street. If you want me to meet me anywhere else, please let me know. But sort of as the vice president, my job is to help take the temperature of the board and to sort of stay connected. So I want to take that seriously. I started that in November, but it was right before a lot of travel and a lot of other things. So I just want you all to know that I'm available and happy to talk and about board stuff, or just, you know, have a walk somewhere. And we don't have to sit and drink coffee and pastries, we can take a walk. And then I am going to take just this moment of time to close with Jimmy Carter's grandson, Jason Carter's part of his eulogy, because it made me, Jimmy Carter was my first president, and his commitment to service is what brings me here and to most of what I do, and clearly makes me cry. But he highlighted his grandfather's work in bringing cases of guinea worm disease from 3.5 million cases every year to only 14. And what he noted is the disease is not eliminated with medicine, it's not eliminated with technology, it's eliminated by neighbors talking to neighbors about how to collect water in the poorest and most marginalized villages in the world. And those neighbors truly were my grandfather's partners for the past 40 years and demonstrated their own power to change their world. He saw a small village as a place to find partnership and power, and a place to carry out that commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. Essentially, he eradicated a disease with love and respect. And Dr. Timms talked about a really challenging budget landscape that we have in front of us, but we also have an amazing resource of people in this town. And he waged peace with love and respect. He led this nation with love and respect, and I just wanted to offer those words to all of us to reflect on as we work to lead this district. And then, the Whitney Modern Museum is free for all people under 25, thanks to a gift from some billionaire. And I really recommend that you go. There's an amazing show of Alvin Ailey's work until February. But it's also free on second Sundays, which is not a small thing because it costs $28 as an adult to go in there. So if you want to go for free, amazing resource, has something for everyone. Outdoor terraces, beautiful vision of how it has been. So, thank you. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
All right. I just have a couple of things, and I'll be quick. One, thank you to Mr. Tryon for putting this on. But in relation to that, and also into relation to something that Dr. Haas was talking about making it better, just communication among the board. We've had a couple of discussions, and we realized that putting this on for us is a lot of work. It takes time out of your day, it takes time, your students are here late. I know in Grantee Morse we had an executive session beforehand, and the kids were there at 8:30, quarter to 9. And it's not very interactive. It's kind of presentation-like. So we're going to look at and on how we have a commitment of the board to visit each of the elementary schools. There's nothing that says we have to have a meeting, a board meeting. And so we're going to look at some things where we go and visit the schools when the students are in session. And we can get to see a broader scope of kids. It's more interactive. We can see all the teachers. And there's some stuff we have to work through, but we have an entire year to do that. But I think the idea of forcing a meeting onto our elementary schools and having you guys have to prepare all this stuff is something we're going to look to move away from a little bit. So that's number one. Number two, I'm going to echo something that Dr. Ursig talked about, and that is Mr. Wickham. Congratulations, 31 plus years with the district. There are too many stories of students who have positive things to say to go over with them here. I still talk to students that I coached 10, 12 years ago that still mention things that Mr. Wickham and his classes that he had. And I'm fortunate enough that my son Damien only got a few months of you, but is in one of your last classes, and there is probably not 2 days in the week that go by where he doesn't come home and talk about something that happened in Mr. Wickham's class. And for Damien to talk about anything, a 15-year-old about what happened in school is a big deal. So, and your impact not only in your teaching, but your support of our athletic programs. You made wrestling a must-see event here. If anybody has ever been to one of Mr. Wickham's presentations of introducing his wrestlers, it's quite special. And you always stepped up when we needed. When the school needed a varsity baseball coach, you were first in line to take that, and you just went and won a sectional title for us. So thank you and congratulations, and on 31 years, and congratulations, and enjoy your retirement. The last thing is a different topic, and it's something that I was asked to address, so I will. We, based on an email that Dr. Ursig and the board got this week regarding immigrants and undocumented students. So this is, we are, is that me? So we are not a political board, nor will we ever engage on either side of a political debate. So what does that mean? What that means is if we have a student that is in our district and they meet the age and residency requirements as defined by law, they are welcome in our schools. And they will be taught by our district, and our district will provide a safe learning environment for all students. In addition, our administration will follow the New York State Family Court Act, FERPA and DASA, which deal with student information, dissemination of student information, and PII. And that's how we are going to approach that. And obviously as this environment either moves or changes, Dr. Ursig and Dr. Warbach will follow guidance from the State Education Commission. But I know, and I think I do know that somebody who was here to speak in public, and I apologize for them for not being able to speak to us. This was one of the topics, so I just felt and was asked to address it and give a couple of comments on it. So, okay. All right. Next, Dr. Warbach, the science of reading.
I'm gonna go grab a snack.
Dr. Wickham, thank you so much. Comparatively to everybody else, I've worked with you the least amount of time, but I have so enjoyed the way that we have collaborated, particularly with project-based learning. You were part of the first cohort here in Saugerties with Ms. Hayes, Mr. Cooper, Ms. DeFino, and Mr. Feccio, and every time I left our planning meetings, I thought, wow, this is gonna be incredible. And you brought so much to the table with your enthusiasm, creativity, and really wanting to move the needle so that our students were really driving their learning. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. The Saugerties Central School District believes that literacy is a human right. Our students will engage in multiple literacies to explore the world and themselves and connect with others to solve problems within and beyond our community. Literacy instruction in Saugerties embraces research and standards-based instruction. We are committed to providing diverse, innovative, and joyful literacy experiences that prepare each student to be globally literate and reach 21st century success. That is our philosophy of literacy that was created in 2021-22 academic school year by our teachers here in Saugerties. So, this is a huge topic. I've been given 5 minutes, and we're going to begin the conversation. So I invite you to think about this. I invite you to ask me questions. Our principals are very well versed in this. Dr. Jen is. Ms. Churchill and I spent a lot of time of late talking about this as well. So again, this is the beginning. What you have in front of you was, I provided you hard copies of 3 literacy briefs. The first one is, what is the science of reading? The second one is the myths, because there are many myths out there. So part of tonight is dispelling some of the myths and how it relates to writing. So those are yours. The briefs are exactly what they say. They're brief and they're concise. So you could read them probably within 10 minutes, all 3. So New York State has literacy initiatives right now. And we know that literacy is the cornerstone of academic and personal success. So NYSUT has several literacy initiatives that align with the science of reading. So while SED is not telling us the very specific curricula that we need to use, unlike other states in America, they are providing us a lot of guidance. So Mr. Tryon, Dr. Jen, and myself have attended some of the trainings at Ulster BOCES of unpacking the science of reading, and then recently there was new guidance. Actually, it's not really that new. It was from 2020, and they resurfaced it, and it's the P3 Instructional Best Practices. Here's what you need to know. By September 1st in 2025, not that far away, Saugerties Central School District needs to attest to the Commissioner of Education in New York State that we are adhering to the P3 Instructional Best Practices. So we have some work to do. We are on our way, but there are many things we need to continue to work to make sure that we are aligned with the science of reading.
So I take it if by you saying that, if we had to do that today, we couldn't.
Well, I'm going to go through, I'm going to answer that.
Okay.
But if we can just pause,
Yeah.
because there's many ways in which we have aligned ourselves in the past 4 years, but we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to be a priority. This is our business. Teaching and learning and reading is our fundamental thing that we need to teach. It needs to be our top priority. So what exactly is the science of reading? It is a 50-plus years of meta-studies. It is a body of research of how children develop reading and writing skills and competencies. It reflects research in multiple fields such as education, psychology, linguistics, neuroscience, sociology, speech and implementation science, and other fields. And it integrates discoveries from across disciplines and creates a comprehensive understanding of the reading and writing processes. It is not a single approach, and it's not a curriculum you can buy. You can't. Teaching reading is probably one of the most complex things that we do in education. And if our teachers are about my age, when we were attending college and then being trained to be a teacher, we were not taught the science of reading. It wasn't taught to us. So we're in a very vulnerable state here in America where all this research has surfaced. We now know what is right and good practice, and we need to change. And change, we know, we keep coming back to that theory of change by Cotter and how that can be vulnerable and scary, particularly for our adults. The students don't care. The students are like, yeah, teach me. They're open. But working with adults and changing practices is difficult. So this is a time in which we need immense support. It is a structured approach, which I'm going to define, and it's a structured approach for all students, all meaning all English language learners, all special education students, all students who have dyslexia, all means all. And it's grounded by Big Six, and we will define that in a second too. It emphasizes culturally responsive environment that is equitable for all, and the science of reading should be used to inform what we teach and how we teach it. All right, so what exactly do they mean by structured reading? And every single slide that is being used today is taken from SED and the documents they have provided and everything that I've hyperlinked for you. So structured reading is systematic and cumulative, meaning that it's presented in terms of the skills that need to be taught and are introduced systematically in a logical sequence. Keep building and building and building. It's explicit and direct. The instruction is clear, meaning we're not going to have the students make assumptions. In the past, if we were to put a learning reader before a 6-year-old, there would be pictures, and we would do cueing, and what does the picture say? Well, we take away the pictures, and we want the students to read now through explicit and direct teaching of phonemic awareness and phonics. The science of reading is not just phonics. It includes many other components, but that is just an example. It's also responsive and authentic, and I really appreciate this because there are multiple pathways for our students. We need to differentiate. Some of our students come to school already knowing how to read. We need to meet them where they are and continue to challenge them. Then we have students who really struggle. One of the best examples sometimes is by showing a non-example, right? So with the science of reading, particularly for a 6-year-old, this is not the time that we want to do inquiry and phenomenon-based learning. This isn't the time where we want to say, what do you notice? What do you wonder? That's, perhaps we would ask that about a book for comprehension at the end, but when we are teaching them letter sounds, blending, that needs to be explicitly taught. Okay, so the Big Six skills and competencies that SED has adopted are all in the science of reading, and it's oral language, phonological awareness, which is how many sounds in a word. So for example, the word chop, chop, op, chop. There's 4 letters, but 3 sounds. So if you have your students at home and you see them tapping, that's what we want. We want for them to be tapping out those sounds. And phonics is the matching of the sound to the letter. So there's a difference there. And then we have comprehension, fluency, and vocabulary. So this gets to the point and answers Mr. Riazzi's question about if we had to answer this today, where would we be? So we've been on a journey. So I want to take a few minutes just to explain this journey. 4 years ago, we had 4 different literacy programs. 2 needed to immediately be implemented in the fall of 2021. I immediately was very distressed because there was not a continuous thread of commonality between these 4 programs. So after researching and speaking to multiple experts in the field who have far more knowledge in literacy than I do, it became apparent that you always come back to the New York State ELA standards. And what we did, the instructional coaches and I, was we came up with some articulation and pieces that would create connective tissue of these 4 different programs. And they were the following. In every agenda, everything we did with the principals that year was, we told the teachers we want small group differentiated instruction. Whole group instruction, like a read aloud, with accountable talk. Not just, ooh, let's feel cozy on the rug and read a nice little book. But if we're gonna read, I'm gonna ask you questions, we're gonna engage with the text. Explicit and direct phonemic awareness and phonics instruction. Independent reading with conferring, because the research has stated that drop everything and read does not work, particularly if you had me as a child. So conferring with the teacher, conferring peer-to-peer. And writing as a process, not an assignment. Writing requires revision, feedback from the teacher, revision again. Feedback from your peers, revision again, until you finally get your final revision. So in 2021-22, those articulation of those literacy goals were so important for us. We created the philosophy of literacy. We implemented interreading. Interreading is considered a science of reading program, by the way. We implemented literacy footprints. That's where some of the questioning happens. It is not considered a science of reading program. We supplement it with the Foundations program to teach explicit and direct phonics and phonemic awareness. We trained and launched an instructional coaching program and also systematized how do we assess our kids in literacy, and had to train everybody. We also launched the Saugerties Central School District first PD catalog. At this particular time, we did not have any specialized reading teachers in the elementary school, which is a sin. This is our business. We had no pacing guides, and we had no curriculum maps. So if somebody went out on medical, there was no direction for them of what to do. In 2022 to 23, we moved in the direction of hiring 2 specialized reading teachers, trained them in Wilson, which is an incredible dynamic program, specifically addresses needs with students with dyslexia. We also at that time offered this training to any special ed teacher and any MTSS teacher who would like the training. To be clear, this training is very robust. The teachers have to videotape themselves, and they receive immediate feedback from a coach who is very direct with them. So at this point in Saugerties, we have 6 teachers who have gone through the training. We've trained all of our reading specialists who we hire in this program, and we are seeing a huge difference. As you can see in the slide, we've offered a plethora of all different types of science of reading and structured literacy workshops in our superintendent's conference and we began creating pacing guides. Again, pacing guides is just calendaring. This is what you need to do this month and this month. Curriculum maps are the skills, the assessments, and what you're doing. In 2023, we got tighter with a vision. I just want to swing back that in 2022, that DEI belief statement, just like our philosophy of literacy, that really is another North Star for us, just like our mission and vision. And it influences our work in literacy. So last year, we did a lot of phenomenal work of moving towards the science of reading. One of the biggest things that happened was we implemented foundations in 3rd grade. Not only did we do that, but here at Riccardi, under Principal Tryon, Riccardi was a pilot school of receiving intense feedback and coaching from an expert in foundations while simultaneously training our instructional coach, Anna Zivian. And then Anna trained everybody else, all the other 3rd grade teachers. But here in Riccardi, Stephanie Pettit and Rebecca Mulford received intensive coaching. We also began looking at a structured literacy approach for writing. And with the ELA and humanities lead teachers, we really began looking at writing. What is our data? We didn't have much for writing. That tells us we need to do something. And began thinking about, so what do we want to do, which leads into this work. We began doing shifting the balanced book studies. Then, with a community partner at the Orpheum, there was this incredible documentary called The Right to Read. So anyone who wanted to go see that for our superintendent's conference day, we met at the Orpheum, we watched the documentary, which is about the science of reading, and yes, all the controversies that you may or may not have read in the newspaper, and also how, going back to our philosophy of literacy, literacy is a human right, and it's contingent upon your zip code. You need to still be receiving an equitable education in literacy, and that documentary did address that. We provided a panel discussion, and we provided some roundtable discussions post the documentary because it's very upsetting when you first watch it, particularly if you're a teacher, you want to do the right thing, you think you've been doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden you find out, what? Guided reading is not what I'm supposed to be doing? So for many educators here in America, this is a moment in time where people are pausing, reflecting on their practice, and this is a time where they need immense support with professional learning, with coaching, with financial supports as well. Last year, I did mention this previously, but the curriculum maps that the kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers did over the summer were incredible. It's probably the best curriculum maps I've seen. They also began to implement social studies and science into the maps, which is critical because we want depth and breadth of academic vocabulary. So, which brings us to today. Today we have 3 reading specialists, which is +1 in the secondary, which is great. We have launched the Writing Revolution, which, while it's not the science of reading, it is a structured literacy practice because it is an explicit and direct way of teaching writing through strategies. Again, you can't buy the Writing Revolution program curricula. They're strategies. And our teachers have really taken to this. K through 12, we have done our learning walks, and I'm so pleased to see all different types of strategies in our classrooms. To date, we have offered internally 59 structured literacy workshops. So the people who have been facilitating that would be folks like everyone from Principal Tryon, myself, and the 4 instructional coaches. We have 31 teachers who have officially finished the micro-credential in the science of reading at SUNY New Paltz. It's more like 39 right now, but these are the ones who are officially up. And then the 6 teachers that I mentioned, and right now we have a book study happening in the Writing Revolution, elementary and secondary, and we have 39 teachers enrolled. So that's on their own time. They're very much invested. And right now, our piecing guides are up to date, and we're moving along with curriculum mapping. So where do we go next? Last slide. Everyone's doing great. Everybody awake? Woo! All right, good. Okay. So coming back to, by September 1st, 2025, we need to attest to the fact that we are aligned with the P3 instructional guide. We're on our way. What do we need to work on? We need to work on that kindergarten through 2nd grade component. We need to work on structured assessment strategies for the teachers. And Principal Tryon, who has a lot of expertise in this, and Dr. Jen as well, are beginning to look at kindergarten. You know, there are other ways we can think about assessing kindergartners, and we need to do that. And we need for these literacy assessments to align with the Big 6. So, you know, as we're wrapping up, we need to be vigilant about structured literacy practices and teachers receiving feedback from principals, from coaches, and most importantly, from each other. Continue the writing revolution work, and, you know, we are at the beginning of budget season. I understand the situation. I think everybody in the room understands the situation after Dr. Tim's report. But this is our work. If we're not doing the literacy work, then why are we here? And the budget is a statement of values. So literacy has to be our top priority and what we value most so that our students can be a beacon of excellence, which is our vision. So thank you. So this is just the beginning.
I just think it's also worth sharing with the board that when we interview candidates, we are still getting candidates who graduate relatively recently who have no idea what the science of reading is. So this is more than just public school, it's also at the higher education as well.
Thank you, Dr. Borgo. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to our agenda portion is K, which covers resignation, leaves of absence, and appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wall, seconded by Mrs. Kelder. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. So with this, I would like to make a note that there are 2 people in the audience who stuck it out with us. Congratulations to Mr. DeCesar, welcome aboard. And Mr. Cooper, thank you for taking on Mr. Wickham's department chairperson. Thank you.
And for staying 2 hours.
And Ms. Kendall's here as well, and we just voted on her resolution retirement.
Oh, wait.
Oh. I apologize, Ms. Handy. Congratulations on your retirement. Thank you, Ms. Wickham, for coming back. Okay, moving on to L, business office recommendations. We have the treasurer's report, revenue and appropriations, internal claims audit, tax refunds, non-resident tuition rates, estimated and final, and then the health and welfare services billing rates. I have a motion
So moved.
by Dr. Haas, seconded by Ms. Bellarosa. Any discussion?
I just wanted
Ms.
to.
Bellarosa, sure.
Sure. I just wanted, just wanted to just point out on the internal claims audit report. I mentioned a couple meetings ago that our internal claims auditors, being more diligent in identifying, on her report to the board where a claim may have failed, her review. And it's typically just, signatures not being on purchase orders, or receiving reports and things of that nature, that she flags as not being complete. And in her report, she typically identifies the number of claims that have failed her review. But I've asked her in the future for the board's additional information to include the value of those claims that are failing as well. It just gives us a little bit more context of what she's reviewing. So I just wanted to point that out to the board and to the rest of the viewing audience as well.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion else? Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to M, which are board action items. We have some resolutions up front, and then some agreements with the Anderson Center for Autism, the LaSalle School, new teacher aide position, an MOA with the STA, and then several policy second readings. Yes? Yeah, go right for you. Yeah.
I'd like to have number 9 pulled out.
Okay, so,
Consent agenda.
yeah, so we're going to pull number 9, policy 5840, out for a discussion and then a roll call vote. So I'm going to table that one and look for a motion on the other items, which are 1 through 8, and 10, 11, 12, and 13. I have a motion for those. Ms. Bellarosa, a second?
Second.
By Mr. Meyer. Any discussion on those? All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, number 9, which is our second one.
I just had a question.
Yes.
On the safety plan, it just references anonymous reporting mechanism for school violence. What is that?
So we have anonymous alerts where people can go online and submit.
Okay, on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
And it goes to the building administrators and those district officers.
Right. Okay, sorry.
All right, so number 9 is policy 5840, which is our artificial intelligence, our second reading. So that's the one we're going to pull out. I'd like to hit every board member and get their thoughts and opinions and concerns. So Mr. Meyer, we'll start down with you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the conversations that we've had at the policy meeting about this as well. And I guess based on the conversations we had at policy, it seems like most everyone's on board with a lot of the AI used by teachers, faculty, administrators. I don't think there's a concern about exposing some kids to AI in certain contexts. But I do think AI is going to be a huge step. I don't think anyone disagrees. It's going to be revolutionary. And based on some review I did, I saw Pew Research Center did a survey of K through 12 faculty members and public school teachers. And in that survey, 6% of the teachers thought that AI would be more of a benefit than a cost, more than a harm. comfortable if we had a little bit more time to maybe put some additional guidance or guardrails in it. I guess my concern is that the proposed policy sort of opens it up to almost any type of use of AI in the school situation. And I guess my concern is that rather than opening the door fully and then trying to close it later on, that we maybe consider a little bit more of a narrower start to using AI in the classroom, and then grow the use of AI as information and resources become available, rather than opening it and then trying to close that barn door in a year when we're having concerns about AI. Thank you.
Ms. Rosa?
Sure. I guess just I'll be brief. My perspective is that, artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. From the earliest internet searches and such, and it's been growing and growing, and this generative AI, has definitely taken us to another level, that, is only going to continue to grow. My concerns, are somewhat addressed within this policy in that, we want to make sure that it's communicated that generative AI can have biases and things of that nature. But I also then have to look, my second perspective is that, I look at the company that I work for. It's a very, very small company. The owner of the company is 70 years old. And he's starting to embrace AI in, dabbling in ChatGPT. And on one of our last team meetings, we were talking specifically about using AI to help capture meeting notes, being a participant in our meetings, and it's a note taker and it summarizes everything. And we produce weekly or monthly newsletters, and using AI to help generate those newsletters. And he's tasking our 26-year-old assistant to research those AI abilities and components. And then I kind of think about, okay, I have two ends of the spectrum kind of embracing AI, and really the 26-year-old, I look at what our business is in public education, and it's to prepare our students for higher education and the workplace. And if this is going to be expectations in the workplace, I do think that it's important that we probably do have some sort of introduction to AI in the classroom and amongst the faculty and staff. To the other point being made, a lot of policies that we do have kind of are made and then sit there and aren't addressed for 10, 15 years. If you look through our policy manual, the last time they were updated is quite a long time. So I hope that this policy is not stagnant, and that we are constantly looking at it, and especially as this technology is very fluid and moving, and that we do continue to revisit it, and making sure that we do have guardrails in place, because there are a lot of good things about this, but there can be a lot of negatives, and I think that we need to be open-minded about that and really move with, what's going on. And that's kind of my perspective.
Mr. Key?
So my concern is who, this is going to fall, the responsibility for all of this is going to fall on our educators. I feel like I'd like to see them given more time, more training before we implement a policy where we open this door specifically to students. If we open it to students, then we also become responsible as a district to how that data is used. I think that in this policy, we mention a lot of our concerns, and they're made mention of, but they're not addressed. They, and again, this is gonna fall on teachers who are overwhelmed with all of their existing responsibilities, and for them to, I would like to see them have the time to learn these AI systems themselves, and before they're going to be expected to guide students through appropriate usage and through the biases that the systems that are built into these systems. Again, we make mention of them, but we don't have a plan for them. Again, this will all fall on educators to manage. I also have concerns about the technical staff, that we would have to manage implementation, help select platforms, you know, and we've handed every student a computer, essentially. We become responsible for how they use those tools. We say we don't want them in the policy. We say we don't want them to share we don't want information to be shared, personal information, but students working on assignments only have their own home experience, their own experiences in their own lives to draw from. So AI systems thrive on data. And I was looking for the statistic, but data breaches, hackers are targeting institutions to pull data from. Education falls third. Health information and I think financial services are the top two. But student data is what hackers are looking to break into and obtain. And AI systems are going to be fed with student data. And I think also if we don't have the technical staff or expertise, and you know, I was discussing with tech in my life about how you limit these large language models. You have to have a small language model that's taken outside and holds student data completely separately from the rest of the AI system. And do we have the ability to set that up? And we were just talking about money. Do we have the money to finance a truly secure system for our students and their data? So because of data concerns and because of the additional burden, I see this being on educators and not favor this policy.
Dr. Haas?
You want me to? Yeah, I concur with a lot of what has been said. I've recently actually used ChatGPT to do, you know, some very, very tiresome work that would have taken me many hours to do otherwise, and it was amazing. And so I think AI is here. I think whether or not it's here to stay is one thing. I think generative AI, I mean, so when you do a Google search, you're using AI. I want to apologize really to the policy committee chair and committee and the board really for not paying closer attention to this policy over the past few months in the policy committee meetings, several of which I missed. Reading the policy, and I actually met today with the NISBA representative, and I really encourage everybody to take them up. I think you probably got pinged, or maybe I just did because I'm technically a new board member, but you can reach out to NISBA and they will talk to you about any of the resources they have. And I asked, I said, you know, what's the deal with the AI policy? And so we can actually request, I mean, we pay for Erie One BOCES, but we can each as individuals request 1 to 2 policies from NISBA a month, and they'll give us a sample policy. And so anyway, so I think we could have a better policy. I think we need to have a policy, and I think we need to say, okay, when are we going to have some policy? I agree with Mike. I think it could be more limited and include include some more language around, these are our concerns and these are our values. I listened to Dr. Rohraback talking about literacy as our priority. In the policy, it says, the district permits teachers to determine whether students in their class may use Gen AI for assignments. I think it's important to give teachers that autonomy. But I think all teachers need to notify students of how that is going to work for them, whether or not they're permitting them to use AI. And then it says that the district the district will provide training, awareness, and support to teachers in navigating the evolving use of generative AI in the classroom. And I do think that needs to happen, but we have limited resources, and I would hate to have our resources spent in that kind of training when we need to invest in those interactions that really help kids navigate ideas and making things and doing things and interacting with others. So I think we need to have a policy. I think we could have a policy in place. I'm not sure I want to support this policy tonight. And I apologize for it getting to a second read without more of this conversation.
Mr. Wall. Yeah, so I don't think, we're not bringing, and again, I'm just trying to, collect and listen to some of my colleagues and some of their concerns. We're not bringing AI to Saugerties School District. I think a couple of people have pointed out that artificial intelligence has been here for a pretty long time. And what this policy does is this policy acknowledges that first and foremost, that artificial intelligence is here. And we acknowledge that artificial intelligence is here. And when we look at the actual policy and we look in detail at what's included, there's no question there are areas where some people might say, well, that's a vagary, right? That's too vague for me. I don't understand. We need to develop that out. How is that going to be fleshed out? What's that going to look like? How is the teacher going to tell the kids how they're going to do that? These types of things. But in essence, that's essentially what policy is creating the opportunity for, right? So anytime we do anything in the school system, you ultimately say at some point we have procedures for what we're going to do. And when we're creating and getting together with our colleagues to develop those procedures, we usually do so based upon a plan. And you don't have procedures, and you don't have a plan unless you have a policy that articulates the need for the plan. It acknowledges the circumstance that exists. It acknowledges that there's room for the growth, the training, and the opportunity. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't kick the can down the road. I'm not attempting to diminish anyone's opinion on this policy in particular, because the policy itself states really clearly that it sets guidelines for the fact that these things are going to be revisited. The risks and limitations are going to be revisited. How the biases and how teachers teach the biases and all these different types of things. So, I'm not someone that thinks that you can policy and plan and procedure everything out of existence by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think for us to not acknowledge that AI is here and to not create some structure surrounding how we're going to proceed as a district moving forward is providing no guidance and providing no guardrails, and to a certain degree is a little derelict in our responsibility. Without this policy, it is the Wild West. You don't have the opportunity to create plans. You don't have the opportunity to create procedures because people are doing this anyway. Students are doing this anyway. And it's similar to one of the earlier conversations. It's happening. If we've got 200 different teachers using AI, it's happening 200 different ways, right? So you have to have a starting point. 1,000-mile journey starts with one step. So my feeling is that this is a needed policy. It's like any other policy, it's going to evolve as our information grows. It's going to evolve as we engage with our instructors, right? That was mentioned quite a few times. There's no question a lot of responsibility this is going to be on the teachers. It's part of their work, right? We don't operate in isolation, and teachers don't operate in isolation from policy or administrators. So when we do have policy, and we do have to develop plans and procedures, absolutely it's going to involve work on the part of the teachers, right? And that's where this evolution is going to come from, when we grow and learn together, really, as we're moving towards some really uncharted territory. More important than ever that we at least begin to structure what this is going to look like. So I think this is an important policy. I don't think it's any more sacrosanct than any other policy. And what I mean by that is this: it can change, and they can all change. But to not have a policy on AI in 2024 or 2025, I think we are in, right? Yeah, I think that would be a dereliction of the board's responsibility.
Ms. Keller?
Mr. Carly's mic's not here. I don't know.
No? Yeah, okay. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. I feel like we definitely need to have a policy, and like Bill said, you know, we have to start somewhere. But I also feel as though I don't want to have a policy just to say we have a policy. If we're going to have a policy, that has to be the beginning of the work, and we have to come up with a plan of how we are going to support teachers in being able to communicate to our students exactly what the expectations are. And how we, the board, or you know, higher administration is going to support our teachers so they can support their students. It is going to be a lot of work, but with anything, and we are, like Christine said, you know, we are, AI is the future. You're going to find it in employment when you leave, even before you leave high school. I mean, you go to McDonald's and they're, you know, using different things there. So I do believe we need to have this policy, but I would like to see what the plan is. Or should I say, I'm very interested and excited to see what the plan is going to be, so that we can support our teachers and our students moving forward.
I think we have everybody. So my thought is, really quick, I think there are some differences of what goes in a policy and then what is the responsibility of the administration, which is the teacher rollout and how those are going to be communicated. That stuff is not going to be in a policy ever. Those are day-to-day operational things that our administration has to determine. I do understand the data components of it, and where the security lies and what is needed from a data perspective. I also think, I get the sense that there is a thought that this policy, if we approve it, okays AI or allows AI into the school. I can tell you, AI is here. There are students using it today. So if we think that there is, because there's not a policy, or if we don't move forward with something, or we raise some different concerns, that there are no students using it. It is being used, and I think, Dr. Gorbach and I, it's going probably on a year ago now, we always said that you can't put a policy around AI with walls in it that has everything defined in it. The technology is changing too fast. The usage of it is changing too fast. You have to create a policy that is going to have some vagueness in it. And then you are going to go and, as things evolve, And the plan, as Mrs. Kelder said, as the plan comes out, you may have to change some of that. So I understand the concerns. I do think, one thing that's not mentioned is, I definitely think there's a different perspective and plan on AI in our elementary schools, for elementary age kids, as there are for our secondary kids. I think, when you get to 10th, 11th, and 12th, to what Ms. Villarosa and Ms. Kelder said about preparing our students, that's a different perspective than allowing a third grader to go use AI on their own and write something. So I think that's something that we really haven't discussed. If people need to, feel like it needs to be discussed, I just think, this is not a matter of determining whether AI is going to be allowed or not. So, all right. I'm sorry. We are going to take a roll call vote. So, I just want to go by the down the table, go that way and go this way. Oh yeah, absolutely. I apologize.
That's okay. Just a couple things I wanted to maybe highlight or address. One being the actual plan, right, it's going to depend on what the policy says. So, we have an idea of what we want to do, but depending on what's actually approved will determine the fine details of the plan, so forth, for that. In last year, our focus really has been on secondary for this. So there has been professional development during conference days, brief, I would say elementary, right, of what AI can do. And then we actually did have some time for our secondary staff to go into the computer lab and experiment with AI, particularly to help with lesson plan development. So they were doing stuff that we shared, various ones from poster posters that we got. So they were using it themselves to see how that they could use it and incorporate it in their classrooms, right? With the caveat that, right, just because it spits it out doesn't mean it's true, right? Just because it's on Facebook doesn't mean it's true. So they're all really responsible for verifying the information. So for that. And just to kind of, unfortunately, this is going to fall on our educators. I think it is going to be a question of, right, when is AI useful, right? So if one of my children is researching something and has to put together a presentation, is the research component of it more important than using AI to put the information on the slides, right? So I would much rather have my child kind of spend that time in the research and put the ideas, and then if, the presentation part is secondary to me at that point, right? So it's also going back to the New York State standards and saying, what do our kids need to learn, and then how do we get them there, as it should be at all times.
And one thing I just want to go back and clarify too is, so voting yes or no moves this. If we vote no, we're simply moving it back to first reading, which means it's still going to sit within the policy committee and it'll get reviewed. So I would ask that everyone, including the public who are listening, is that they come to the February policy committee meeting. Everyone is welcome. And come with ideas of what the policy should say. Things that you want in the policy, right? Whether you're the public, whether you're on this board, whether you're a teacher, and not simply come with, well, we can either turn AI on or turn AI off, and that's our discussion. But come with what we think the policy should say, so it can be discussed and we can move around. Okay? It is now in Virginia's court.
Okay, William Ball.
Yes. Aye.
Christine Villarosa.
Yes.
Katie Emerson Hall.
No.
Tina Irizarry.
No.
Carol Kelder.
Yes.
Timothy Wells. Michael Meyer.
No.
Jeffrey Osby.
Yes.
So, motion's been defeated. So, 2, 3 yeses. 3. Oh, I apologize.
4 yes.
4 yeses, 3,
I'm sorry. I apologize. 4 yeses, 3 no, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to our committee reports. Audit committee.
Nothing to report.
Facilities.
Yeah. Met last week, talked about the flood, the application for the next capital outlay project at Ricardi, which will be on the exterior of the building, for the ADA compliant ramps at the state level. I got approval from the engineering department, I believe. It's going through the financial department next. So hopefully we'll get that back soon so we can go out to bid for that. Capital project is overall wrapping up. We are going to have a meeting to see what additional work we are going to perform at Morris Elementary School.
Okay. Policy committee? Wall?
Yeah, we obviously talked about policy a little bit here today. I think you've got some updates as to the types of things we've been talking about. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 4th at 5:30. That's it.
All right. Public recognition, is anybody still here? No? Okay. All right. We want to do this. Beyond? All right.
So initially, the agenda had an executive session having to do with hiring, appointments, and collective bargaining. But at this particular time, I don't have any updates. So unless there is something else that the board would like to bring up, there could be a motion to amend the agenda and make that work.
Okay. So, anybody, a motion to eliminate the executive session? So, Rosa, second. Mr. Meyer? Any discussion? All those in favor? All right. Motion to adjourn. Wow. Dr. Haas and, all those in favor?
Congratulations, you too.
Have a blast. Yeah.